Welcome to Candid Catholic Convos, a program brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg. Our mission is to humanize the Church and help you to grow in your faith, love, and understanding. I'm your host, Rachel Trochet, a cradle Catholic who's only human and struggled with faith on more than one occasion. Each week, you'll hear engaging, down-to-earth interviews and actionable strategies you can implement into your life with ease to help you grow closer to God. If you're ready to open your heart and step fully into the person God created you to be, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos. If you're listening to us live, today is Mother's Day. From one mother to another, both biological and spiritual, you are seen, you are valued, and you are a beautiful reflection of God's nurturing love. Thank you for your sacrifice, grace, and strength. I wanted to run today's episode on Mother's Day because if you're anything like me, you may be a mother who has a hard time seeing her own worth. Or maybe you're not a mother. Maybe you're just any human being, really, pursuing life or a career or school and wondering if you're ever going to be good enough at whatever it is you're doing. Personally, as a wife and mother, I find myself constantly questioning what I'm doing and if I'm doing it well. In school, grades were measurable. I could tell mathematically how well or how poor I was doing, and I could visually see the areas that needed improvement. But there are no grades in life. There's no guidebook. There's no map. There's no checklist. The internet would have you believe otherwise, though. I can't tell you how many posts or videos or stories I've seen that say, if you're not doing this, you're wrong. If you want to be happy, do this. If you are already doing this, stop right now because it's so bad for you. It's noisy out there. And to be honest, it's difficult accepting the fact that I will never be sure if I'm a good enough wife, mother, person, or Catholic. So how can we tune out the noise? How can we remember to see ourselves the way God sees us, to recognize the goodness in ourselves as easily as we recognize it in others? Father Tim Sahd, pastor of Seven Sorrows Parish, joins me today to unpack this notion of being good enough and why God lets us figure out our path on our own. Father Sahd, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to have you back on the program, and I'm really excited to talk to you about this because it's something that's kind of been on my mind recently.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's so good to be with you.
So the whole topic of today's episode is kind of about being good enough and what that means. And in my research, I found that professional mentors have even found that, after the first basic human need for survival is met, our second greatest need is to know that we're good. So what does it mean to be a good person?
That's a really good question, because when we hear as priests, we hear that a lot, such and such is a good person. And I never know what that means because I don't know what is the baseline for that comment.
Right. How do you measure it?
How do you even determine, how do you and I even agree on what good is? And I guess the way I would say that is, in what environment are we asking this question? Am I a good person? Because there is no just general what it means to be good. If we're asking in society what it means to be good, that's different than what it means to be as a Catholic. Am I a good person? And I guess it's subjective if you're looking at it that way. But if you're asking a priest, and you are, and you may regret that in a second. No, but if you're asking a priest, I guess I would go back to when you first asked me about this. The first thing I thought of was when the rich young man asked Jesus, good teacher, what must I do to enter heaven? Jesus says, why do you call me good? No one is good except the Father. And that was really kind of an interesting moment for me. So when I hear people say, I'm good, or, that's a good person, I think it has to be linked. If Jesus says no one's good except the Heavenly Father, then we have to get something from the Heavenly Father in order to be good. Now, God gives it to us in any way he desires. He gives us so many blessings in our life. But as Catholics, we know that in order to receive what the Father has to give us, it's through the sacramental life somehow. So we're unable on our own to be good. All of it comes from the Father. So when you ask, what do I have to do to be good? Or what does it mean to be good? I think it's got to come, well, certainly we know, it's got to come from the Father. It can't just come from something inside of us. And so as Catholics, it means, okay, how do I tap into God in order to get his goodness? And for us, that's the sacramental life, baptism, which is the foundation of tapping into the fountain of life. So if you ask me, what does it mean to be a good person? I say, well, we got to tap into the one who is good in order to participate in goodness. Obviously, people are good. They do good things. But I think the basis of what it means to be good comes from God. And I think what it means to have dignity and everything that comes from him comes from our baptism. When Jesus was baptized, I read the baptism. We have a lot of baptisms at Seven Sorrows. I read the gospel of the baptism at every one of them. And the scene of Jesus' baptism is kind of like this comic book movie, like entrance of God into the world. It says Jesus was baptized. The sky opened up. The voice of God comes out. The Holy Spirit comes down. Jesus is there. So you have the Trinity present in the world, visible, hearing, sensible for the first time to everyone. And God the Father says about the Son, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." This is my beloved Son. And when we're baptized, we become beloved sons and daughters of God the Father. We are loved, period. A love that can never go away. And even people who aren't baptized are created in the image and likeness of God. So, what does it mean to be good? Already, by our creation by God, we are good. But by baptism, we become part of his family. We become beloved sons and daughters of God. That's what it means to be to participate in goodness.
That's really good to remember, especially on days that we're really struggling to feel like we matter. You were created in the image and likeness of God. You are automatically loved just by being his child. And then when you're baptized into the church, you become even more a part of that. But I feel like sometimes it's hard to remember, And
I guess, why is it hard to remember? If I'm asking you, why would it be hard to remember?
I think, personally speaking, I get caught up in all the other aspects of life, of just live it, like you said, like in society, there's a different expectation. And then sometimes I probably put these self-imposed expectations on myself of I need to be good, I need to hit this level, or you see, I've heard people say well, I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
Like we give ourselves these unattainable goals, and then when we hit them, or if we don't hit them,
we never hit them.
That's we just keep moving the goalpost, and it's hard to remember that there really isn't a goalpost. What is the goalpost?
And I think that's when I was asking you that, I wanted you to answer it that way, because that's how I would answer it. Because we forget that we have this inherent goodness in us, especially by our baptism. We forget it because the world is busy. Our lives are busy. The evil one likes to intervene, especially likes to rob us or distract us from who we truly are, our true identity as beloved sons and daughters of God the Father, that a love that can never be taken away. He makes us feel lonely. He makes us feel abandoned when the source of all goodness is always with us. So busyness is definite enemy of that knowledge of our goodness in God. And I definitely think that's it. And again, what you said there too, is the expectation setting we have for ourselves. We will never fully attain everything we want because our imaginations are much more creative than anything we can possibly do here. But that doesn't mean we aren't living up to our potential. It just means we're not living up to some standard that will never be met by anybody, let alone, me, who is faulty and weak in so many different ways. But you're right. It's our own expectations, but not God's. He didn't place them on us. But then again, I want to ask, though, when we say, what does it mean to be a good person? Is our standard how God sees us as good? How we see us as good? Is it how people in our culture, our neighborhood see us as good? Those are all different standards. But if we're Christians, if we're Catholics, the standard that we seek to meet first is, how are we good in God? And then everything else should flow from that. Because if we're seeking to be good in every different area and we segment them out, we'll never be good in any of them. But if we seek to be good, how are we good in God? Everything else flows from that. I think we'll be joyful. But if we seek to be good in all these other different areas and try to meet everyone's expectations for what that means, we'll never be good in any of them, and we'll be completely miserable. And I think that's part of our problem. That's my problem.
Yeah, I would agree. It's my problem as well.
Yeah, because I don't participate in the first goodness, which is really the only one that matters, which is God.
So I kind of want to build on that a little bit, especially because, as Catholics, there are a lot of things that are, if you talk to a non-Catholic, they're like, why were you Catholic? Because you have to follow all the rules. And as a Catholic who's not theologically learned, like I know the basics. I know
you're not talking to one here either.
So how do we do that? How do we, if there's so many, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how I can phrase this, of like, I know I need to be saying the rosary. I know I need to be going to mass. Like, I know I need to be doing all the things that quote unquote make a good Catholic. But if we can't reach that, like I'm at a stage in my life where I can't go to daily mass currently. If I go to mass once a week, or if I can make it to, the kids' mass at school or saying prayers with them, but like I haven't made it to a holy hours. I've never made it to a 40 hours. I've never, so how, if those are things that we're quote unquote supposed to be doing and we can't meet that, then how do we combat that feeling of failure and feeling like, well, I'm not even a good Catholic because I can't do X, Y, and Z?
Man, what you were listing off there makes me exhausted.
It feels exhausting thinking about it.
You gotta put that on top of everything that you do as a mom,
mm-hmm.
right? And a wife, and have a family, and work, and I think we tend to think of living our faith as doing. Okay, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. And I think in our Catholic world, in all good desires, you will always see, okay, pray this, do this, as all suggestions as good things.
Or like check marks that we have to be hitting.
Yeah. And they're not meant to be that way at all. All prayer is just meant to be in communion with God. So sometimes certain people can communicate with God in certain ways and others in others, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to do all of them, But I guess what I want to say most of all is take away all of that, they're not extras, but just take away the obligations, first of all, and know who you are. You are a beloved daughter. I'm a beloved son of God the Father. Now, those things that we know that we need to do, the obligations, as Christians, as Catholics, because we are beloved sons and daughters of God, Sunday Mass, prayer, raising our children in the faith, those things, they're kind of just natural, they're natural givebacks because my Father loves me and wants to be with me forever. So he sent his son to be with me. And I want to give back to him. I want to share my life with him. All the extras and the things that we need to do, we're not doing anything to get his love. Mm. He already loves us. Like, we wouldn't exist if he didn't love us. Like, we only blink. My heart beats. I breathe. because he loves me. If he for an instant didn't think of me out of love, I would cease to exist. And it's funny when I think about it, I think, I didn't give enough to God today. I didn't get enough time to God today. Like, and he must be thinking, yeah, like I am thinking you every second of every day of your life. And you want to give me 5 minutes, it must be funny for him to think about. I don't know. That's what I assume. But yeah, he loves me into existence. He has loved me into existence, and he loves me in existence. And so my way of giving back to him is participating in that sacrifice in which he gave me his life, which is the Sunday Mass. Daily Mass, yeah, it's not for everybody. It's not possible for everybody, but there's a season for your life now where it might not be possible. There'll be a season for your life, maybe where it will be something you will so want and need. It wasn't possible for me when I worked. Before I was a priest, I worked and I had very strange hours. I wasn't able to go to daily Mass, but I went on a Saturday, but I didn't have a family. And I didn't have Saturday obligations. I went on a Saturday morning, and I loved it. But I didn't do it because I felt like I needed to check a box. I did it because, like, oh my gosh, I feel God's goodness, and I really want to be with him at this time. And I feel good doing it. So I think we need to stop as Catholics thinking about what we need to do for God and just think about what he has done for us. And my natural response to him is, oh my gosh, I want to be with you in these ways. Because I think if we think of our Catholic faith as doing something, it's not going to be very productive. But if we think about what he has done for me, what he does for me, then my natural reaction is I want to be with you here. I want to be with you there. And of course, obviously the things that we believe we should do are first on that list. But then the extras, okay, does this work with how I'm built, how he built me, or will some other way of connecting with him work? So take away the obligatory feel of everything we're told to do that isn't Sunday Mass or raising our children in the faith or things like that, but it's just all the other stuff. Take away the I got to do that because it's going to drive you crazy. And then ask, okay, is this a natural reaction to my love for him? How can I participate and give and showing him and being with him and showing him my love to just respond to his?
I like what you were saying about trying not to focus too much on the checklist or even just comparing ourselves to other people who we deem as good. Like I often think like, well, I can't pray like St. Teresa of Calcutta. And I'm like, well, that's because I wasn't called to be like St. Teresa of Calcutta. Yeah. Like she was called to be this incredible businesswoman. She's also a nun. So she had different demands on her time than I do, where I'm called to be a wife and a mother and working here. But I want to go back to something that you said about you had a different career before being ordained. And we talked about knowing who we are. And St. Francis de Sales said, be who you are and be that well. What if we don't know who we are yet, or we're trying to figure that out? And on a previous episode, I had talked with a spiritual director about listening to God's call or being able to distinguish what we want versus what God wants. So in terms of like our calling or our career or whatever, how do we figure out who we are and what we stand for? And is that okay to change? Are we allowed, not even allowed, but is it acceptable to pivot after the fact?
We're constantly discovering how we were, what we were created for. We're constantly, I use the term built. We're constantly discovering how we were built. Now, I don't mean that in the sense of like we're Frankensteins, or the Munsters. You remember the Munsters?
Oh, I love the Munsters.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah.
Herman Munster, he was built, I don't know why you'd build somebody like that, but I love that show. But we weren't built like that. We were created out of complete love. We were not created in a shop somewhere. And in this, the love of God, not of a man, but the love of God who created us. We are much more complicated beings than we think we are, So, and if there is one who loves us, and is so much greater than we even can imagine he is, then when we think we have it all figured out, we're probably wrong, you know?
Right.
Especially when we're young. I thought I had it all figured out, you know? I guess what you're asking here is what I thought of with me. And I guess that's the best experience I can have. I always, when I grew up, and my brother and I, we love politics. So the first job out of college, I was a political analyst and a writer, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I worked in Washington, D.C., and I loved it. I thought that was what I'm supposed to do. But after 6 or 7 years, I started to feel like I love it. And I bought a house. I did all these things. I thought I was going to be down there forever. But it just is an empty feeling in my stomach, like in my heart. Is this what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life? Like, I enjoy this, but I don't feel like I'm doing anything, you know? And then I thought, I'll do whatever else I thought I was supposed to do. We have a family business in Columbia, just outside of Lancaster. And I thought, well, I'll go home and work in our family business and work with our family. And I loved that. And I loved the work, and I loved working with my family. And I bought a house there then. I sold the place in Washington, bought a house in Columbia, in Lancaster. And I moved there. But I still felt that, like, I love this, but is this what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life? And then I heard a call to the priesthood, and I didn't want it because I knew my brothers and I didn't want to do what they did, you know, as if I could possibly turn it down because 2 of them already did it. So I don't need to be a third, you know, but that's what I was built for. That's what I was created for, even though I didn't want it at first or see it as a possibility. But my heart was telling me throughout the other experiences in my life that they weren't it and something else was. So you ask, is it possible to change? I say it's impossible not to change. You know, I think that we have experiences in our life so that we understand who we are better. You know, I thought I would love these things and I did them and I did love them, but it wasn't what fulfilled me. So that was a good thing. I don't look back on that saying that was a waste of time. There are priests who, you know, are much younger than me, came into the seminary much younger, and they say, you know, they gave God the best years of their youth. And I, you know, I wasted my time. They like to joke. Sometimes they joke. But
what? Priests have sense of humor. What?
Some of them do, actually. Some of them have good ones. But anyway, but so, I mean, I think it's impossible not to. Like, if we think we have it figured out, then I think we think we're God. So God allows us our detours so that we can see what we were truly made for. So I think we have to change. And I think these experiences that we have in our life that maybe aren't the perfect ones for which we were built for are not wrong steps or missteps. They're experiences where God showed us the way and shows us the way. So yeah, I think it's good. And I don't even see them as mistakes. It's living life and experiences. And I wouldn't say I was particularly like open to listening to God at those times. And even I could see where he was leading me when I wasn't particularly open to looking for God. You know, I was Catholic. I was going to mass, but like, I wasn't praying discernment about my life. I was just living life. And even I could understand what he was working through in that. So I think even the hardest of brains, the hardest of hearts can hear God working no matter what we're doing. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's impossible not to change.
It reminds me of when my first job out of college, I was like, I have a job out of college. Like, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it was a job and I stayed there. And I remember like the last couple of years at that job, I was like, I am supposed to be doing something else. I have no idea what it is, but I can't be here anymore, to the point that I was like having anxiety about going into work because I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And in hindsight, I can see that, you know, when you look back on your life experiences, you can see the path. You can see where it was leading you to. And God has this grand plan for all of us. Like, he knew that you were supposed to do those other things before you went to the priesthood. He knew I was supposed to stay at that job for a certain amount of time before I could do anything else. Why doesn't he just give us a map? Why doesn't he like let us in on this grand plan so that we're not sitting around not even sitting around twiddling our thumbs, but like just, I feel like sometimes we're stumbling around in the dark and occasionally we get a flashlight that we can turn on and kind of see our way. But then we run out of batteries, or we have to go find some more batteries and we're fumbling around in the dark. So why, and I get that we have like free will, but sometimes it would just be easier if he would like let us in on the plan. And why isn't it easier?
But I don't see it that way.
No,
to be honest.
Yeah,
because I am so grateful for the time he gave me, the good and the bad experiences I had in both the previous jobs that I had, or the life that I had then, the people that I met. I just went back a couple weeks ago to a function that my first job had, and to get to meet, to talk to those people who I loved. I wouldn't consider them deeply religious, but the conversations that I had with them now, the relationships that I built with them, I could have conversations and they could open up to me about things. I'm so grateful for those. The time I don't know, I wouldn't even consider it walking in the dark, because I would just consider it such an awesome experience that helped lead me to where I am now. Even things when they go wrong in life, I don't see that as like God being somewhat sadistic and like not showing me, like he's up there like laughing at me as I'm running into walls, and I see it as like, okay, he's figuring it out. He's figuring out who he is, and we grow closer to him. When things are going well, I mean, God kind of takes a sidelight because I'm doing it. When they're not going well, God, I need you. And those times things aren't going well, he pulls us closer to him.
We've unfortunately run out of time, but if you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, you can listen to us anytime on Spotify under Candid Catholic Convos, or you can download this episode from our website at hbgdiocese.org. Thank you so much for listening. Our goal at the Diocese of Harrisburg is to walk with you on your faith journey. So if this episode resonated with you in any way, the easiest way to show your appreciation is by sharing this program with your network, or by leaving a review on your listening platform. You can also support us financially by making a donation online at hbgdiocese.org/DAC and clicking the Make a Donation button. Thanks again, and we'll see you at church on Sunday.